And then how do we know when we feel and see God together, how do we know that that happens? It comes out as kindness, as generosity, as consideration, isn't it? It comes out that we will do anything for the other person. No domination. All this modern idea, or not modern idea, ancient idea of separation of the genders, that has to go, it's gone. That's selfishness, that's dominance, that's slavery. We're living in the 21st century, and the modern liberal values are so akin to the highest noble values that there is equality everywhere. There is more slavery today than there ever was in the whole world. Millions and millions of people enslaved. We think slavery is a thing in the past now. There are more slaves in one way or another today. Millions and millions of them. We wouldn't expect that in a sophisticated age, 21st century. Because there's just an abundance of selfishness, self-interest. So we need to develop a generosity of spirit based on this idea of the harmony and equality everywhere of life. And we have the understanding of it, philosophical understanding, that this is all God's grandmother. Let me give you an example. And we take our example here from Sri Ramakrishna, life of Sri Ramakrishna. We find in Sri Ramakrishna's life, he worshipped the Holy Mother as the Divine Mother of the universe. He gave us the clue to her divinity. And was so sensitive not to upset her in any way, shape or form. One day she brought food, he was in a half semi-conscious state. In the dark shadows of the evening, he thought it was the maid. And in Bengali, he used a different word. Two words are there in Bengali, same thing in many other languages. Commonly we'll say you, but in another variation, more sophisticated variation, we'll have an intimate variety of it. And he didn't use that. Then when he realized it wasn't his wife delivering the food, he felt so bad. He had to go, apologize. I'm so sorry. I thought that it was the maid that brought. I didn't realize it was you that brought this food. So every woman is the embodiment. This is Sri Ramakrishna's modern message, embodiment of the Divine Mother of the universe. This idea of woman dominating man, man dominating woman, is purely based on outdated, outmoded slavery. This idea of obedience, that's all gone. Even in the Catholic Church, the people taking vows today, to love, honor, and obey. The obey is gone. So it's it. It brings woman as a second-class citizen. And we have still to overcome that in Africa, in Asia, and South America. And Swami Purnananda says, as long as we treat women like that, there's no hope for the country. India's ruin. Why was India conquered for over 1,000 years? Because of the degradation of women, says Vivekananda. We have to take that seriously. So even in a human relationship, there's a partnership based on love. And love's characteristic is generosity and kindness. So that's why you should be kind to your friends, generous to your friends, share things with your friends, isn't it? So you see, the context of marriage is nature's way of making you unselfish. When you are a bachelor, you only bought milk for yourself. But if you get married, or have a partner like that, some commitment there, you'll take that milk and share it now with the other. You don't say, oh, this is my milk, I used to be a bachelor, I'm accustomed to this habit, my milk. You get your own. It doesn't suit that. Then nature has a way of increasing the selflessness by generating children. So then the whole focus is on the children. The whole focus of family life is what is the very best for the children. It makes us the least selfish. It's a wonderful Mother Nature's way of teaching us this lesson. No harsh words, no narrowness, no miserliness, pure generosity, pure kindness, love. And love as it exhibits itself, love is a spontaneous thing. We don't have to learn to love. It's a spontaneous thing. It expresses itself physically, it expresses itself emotionally, and it expresses itself in actions. So all these great saints had this one characteristic. The great saints had this characteristic, not that they were distant and remote from the world, but they're fully engaged in it out of only one thing, love. So here's what happened. Patrick was, was he Irish?
I don't think so.
No, he wasn't born in Ireland. He was an Anglo-Roman. He was brought up in an area where the part of the Roman Empire was there, and the lifestyle was good, and he lived in a good, settled, secure home. But there were professional Irish raiders who used to come across, and they were very skilled in getting slaves. So they took him, snatched him away, and took him across the seas. You can imagine how bewildered and confused he was, not to mention the weather, the oceans, you know. I don't know what month it was, but anyway, whichever month, it must have been pretty cold. So now he comes across to Ireland, and it completely degraded. Can you imagine how he's humiliated? How he feels isolated, hopeless even. A person like that can fall into despair. He doesn't know anybody. Pushed around. For 6 long years, he stayed there. And so, because of that, he felt some inward shift. Nature has a way of making a shift inside when circumstances are not very good. So he went through so many difficulties and hardships, and eventually he got inspired that he should go back and escape, which he did. So he sought out a boat, and initially his passage was refused. But he had this internal shift towards the divine. And with that internal shift, he had faith. And with that faith, he knew he was loved and looked after, just as he would love and look after others. We get our clue from God. God loves and looks after us. Then all we're doing is, we're expressing that into the area of our own experience. So his whole life changed, because when he was originally there, wherever it was, in Wales or wherever, he wasn't that religious. His whole family wasn't too committed to any aspect of religion, although nominally they must have been Christian. So this is part of the story. Now at this time we can see the other part as a film. In fact, probably just now. But so we celebrate St. Patrick because over time Patrick became a kind of symbol of Celtic Christianity here. And many myths and songs grew around him. You've heard of the breastplate of St. Patrick. He probably had nothing to do with it, but he inspired the early Celtic church in those kinds of ideas. And removed all this difficulty, all this unkindness, all this ruthlessness, symbolized as snakes, leaving the island. And he never ever changed anything, in the sense that none of the early Christians changed anything, in the sense that there's a story that there was a great fire on the hill of Tara, And he made an alternate one on the Hill of Slain. Hill of Slain you can see, opposite Hill of Tara. And he did it on Easter, so the story goes. And it wasn't in a combative mood, but he was saying, if you can do this in the name of maybe perhaps some element of superstition, and I can do this in the name of truth, we're both lighting this a fire, and neither one is necessarily greater, but one shows truth, and the other one, even though it removes the darkness of the area, doesn't really move darkness in the soul. That was the point of it. And then it's told that he took the shamrock. So I write a question there. Why do we have the shamrock? And why do we wear green as well? The green is just the extension of the shamrock. So it's the idea is that there are 3 leaves on the shamrock, and he managed to explain how from one plant 3 things can come. Now, if you look at Christian theology, there's nowhere in Christian theology that can fully and adequately explain this mystery of what Christians call Trinity. We have our own Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. But when you look at it closely, it's the same thing. No difference. The only thing is we might change the language a little bit. So God the Father, we might say God the Mother. Nevertheless, there's a creative aspect of it. And then same thing goes with God the Son is an entity that preserves and protects. Vishnu pervades everywhere, preserves and protects. And Shiva is the destroyer of our ignorance and therefore auspicious. Shiva means auspicious. Shiva is the one who sits like a yogi and emanates the love from within, like that, in that way. So we can say, you see these 2 aspects predominantly put in art. One is the Nataraja, you know the Nataraja, original Nataraja statue is only this big. We think of it as something huge. But actually the original art is only this size. But what a wonderful symbolism, to the extent that this great dancing Shiva, this bronze statue, has been put outside the CERN laboratory in Switzerland, because to modern science it looks like this is the way the universe is. Sudden appearance of things, sudden disappearance of things. And always keeping the universe going. See? So this is the loving aspect of Shiva. Another loving aspect is in Savior. You know, the gods and the demons, the devas and the asuras, they wanted to get the nectar that was there. They wanted to derive it from the Milky Ocean. Milky Ocean is all the permeating waves of the universe called thought, cosmic mind. If you want anything, you have to churn it. You have to churn up your thinking. So they took Vasuki. Vasuki, symbol of Vishnu, symbol of this eternal ocean. He volunteers, tie me like a rope. And so they took, tied him around this danda, this staff, and started churning. A cooperative movement, positive versus negative, all cooperating to produce something good. But eventually we want something. All of us want the same thing, immortality. We want to live forever. So many wonderful things came out, but also toxic poison came out, threatening to overcome the whole world. Vishnu couldn't rescue anybody. Why? Because they made such a hole in the earth that they were going to make some damage, and Vishnu volunteered. Let me transform myself into a turtle. You put the rod on the back of my shell, and I'll protect the earth. I'm a protector. I'll protect the earth. So he couldn't do anything about the poison. So Shiva stepped in. I'll take it. See? See the loving nature of Shiva. I'll take it. I'll rescue the whole world. And this is why he has a blue throat. So this Shiva comes out as energy. Christians put it as Holy Spirit. So using this clover, St. Patrick was able to tell people this great mystery. How is it that from one thing you can get these three? You don't have to go and look for three different plants. It's all from the same thing, all aspects of the same thing.
Vilva leaves like that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly like that. See the similarities?
Yeah.
The same thing. And why is that sacred? Because it represents the whole of existence. Whole of existence is threefold. What is the threefold nature of existence? The whole universe is only made from three ingredients. Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. These are the only three things that the whole universe is made of. Your body is made of them, your mind is made of them, the whole universe is made of them. Three resolved into three essential forces. You can call them gravity, electrical energy and inertia. That's all that there is in this universe. So, the mind is also like that. And we always have to elevate the sattva. So what did St. Patrick do here in Ireland? He did that. He elevated the sattvic element as much as he possibly could. Unfortunately, the Rajas and Tamas is characterized as paganism. But there are many beautiful things there that were incorporated into the Irish version of this Christianity. So if it wasn't for Patrick, these noble, elevated ideas would not be there. These ideas of love would not be there. This transformation of society would not be there. And we wear green because of this shamrock. And we have St. Patrick's parades because 1767, I think it was, 1700 and something anyway. There were Irish people with the colonial forces in America, and they all went into a pub, as was their wont, and celebrated it, and then it became a big tradition from there. And they went with the shamrock. And so from there, in New York, it's now cancelled, something like 200,000 to 300,000 people. And then the St. Patrick Parade only started here in 1970 something.
And 50 cities across the world are lighting up monuments and national monuments in green today.
Wow.
For one man, it's incredible.
Yeah.
You think?
So we have to learn to take our inspiration from all the saints, regardless whether Christian, Muslim, Hindu, or what have you. And particularly if you live in Ireland, you must be familiar with all those great heroic people. The alternative is to keep yourself in isolation as a community.
What is the Irish significance of the three leaves of the shamrock?
Yes, Trinity.
So it's the same as creation.
Yeah.
We would say Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So you see the Father of the world, where the world was generated.
Great.
Brahma.
We can say actually Father, Mother, because without a mother also there's no children. And so in Christian theology, this comes out as logos word, neutral, not masculine or feminine. But we make it feminine, we say walk. From Brahma came walk.
Saraswati.
Saraswati. And Saraswati, not only Saraswati, but a certain sound symbol. What is that?
Om.
Om, exactly. So from that comes Om. And from there comes all the variations of sounds and vibrations throughout the whole universe, culminating in a you and a me. You and a me, no inferior, no superior, so all the same cosmic waves. So, St. Patrick's characteristic, like everybody else, was love, and we don't know anything about St. Patrick except from two things that he wrote. One was Confessions, where he tells everything And so we find here the characteristic of humility. Every saintly person will consider themselves to be lower than the lowest worm. And yet, in their generosity of spirit, the highest radiation of love, like the sun beaming its radiation of love everywhere. This idea that the old ascetic monks and nuns, people like that, renunciates, were sour-minded people living in Skellig detached from the whole world, selfishly looking for their own salvation, is not true. Even living in a cave, they will be full of love that will have its effect everywhere in the world. So Christianity takes this whole beautiful concept of love from St. Paul's letters, and he writes there a beautiful passage on love. Somewhere it will be there in the Bible, I haven't got it out. So, and he gives a characteristic of what is this love. Love is always kind. Love is always giving. No selfishness within it. No moodiness within it. Swami Vivekananda said, if you get into a mood of depression, lock yourself away, don't infect anybody else with it. Always have a smiling face. Always pass that smile on to others. These are the characteristics of spiritual people. Anybody with a sour face, Swami Vivekananda points out, this is not spirituality. More than likely it's dyspepsia, stomach trouble. Yeah? So why don't we adopt this same thing? The life of the saint is always worth studying because that becomes a model for us to study and to emulate and to copy. We have to be the embodiment of single-minded love. And the model for it in Hinduism is what? What is a model for it? We can go back. We have to go back to the Ramayana. Rama and Sita present a model for love. He regarding her as the Divine Mother who came from the earth. That's what Sita means, came from a furrow. And Rama means one who is glorious. How does Ram get his name? Yes, glorious, pleasing, loving, all the opposite to Mara. Okay? And Mara is the evil one, the dark one, the one of ignorance, the one that's not loving, the one that's full of selfishness, it's full of desire and anger and greed and all these other characteristics. What Christianity calls Satan. This is Mara. We find it in the Ramayana and Valmiki's story, and we find it also in Buddhism. How Buddha was tempted by Mara, this evil one. So it's there entrenched in Hindu culture. Valmiki was a robber. He used to rob and kill people. That was the means of his providing for the family. Then you see, the sage Narada came along and became his victim, and Narada asked him, why do you do all this thing? He says, quite simple, how else would I provide for my family? That's why I do it. He says, don't you know it's a sin? Don't you know it reflects on you and your family? Go back. I'll stay here. Don't worry. You can tie me up if you like. I'll stay here. You go and ask your family. Will you share? Tell them what you do. Do they know what you do? No, they don't know what I do. Go and tell them what you do, how you earn a living. And then ask them, will you please share, since you shared the food with me, will you share also the sin? So he went back. We'll share the food, but not the sin. And he thought he had to change. So Narada taught him how to meditate. He taught him this great mantra. He said, repeat, Mara, Mara, Mara. This is the nature that you've been practicing. And it got transferred into Rama, 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 Rama. Then he got inspired by the whole story of Ram. See? Like that. So, this is the characteristic of love. It's a very simple quality.